people need to know the truth. That was her excuse. People need to know the truth, and this is the truth. This really happens.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Denkin, and welcome back to another edition of Becoming the King of Pot. With me, as always, is the King of Pots, my cousin Bruce Perlowin. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Todd, and I got some very interesting stories to tell today.
I know I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today. But before we get into that, if you are watching us for the first time or the 100th time, please smash on that subscribe button. Share us with your friends. It really helps our quest here at Becoming the King of Pot. So, Bruce, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the love of your life, Lana, and I can't say her last name, Svetlana Organa, you're going to have to say it, right?
Ogorodnikova.
Ogorodnikova. There you go. That's a mouthful. Anyway, we're talking about your relationship and how, you took care of her in her old age. But I really want to go back and really explore your original meeting of her, your relationship, how it developed. And I know she's told you some fascinating stories that we want to hear today. So how did you guys meet? And, what was that like, your first week or first month in Pleasanton?
Well, how we first met was very interesting because it was not in Pleasanton where most of the second meeting took place. Um, I was out in California. I just moved out there, and Judy's sister Nancy had brought in a Jamaican load out to San Francisco, and I went to the hotel where they were at, and there was this beautiful, gorgeous, hot-looking blonde there, and I said,
Beautiful,
you know,
gorgeous, and hot. Wow.
yes, long hair, yeah. And that was Svetlana, and I didn't know Svetlana from anything else, and
Right.
after, we left the room, I was asking Louis, which is Nancy's husband, "Who was that girl?" She goes, "Oh, she's from Sweden." I go, "Well, what's her name?" They made up some name, and that was it. It was a very, very short, brief meeting, and, um, and that was Svetlana because for some reason they knew each other, and I don't know how or why, 'cause Lana wasn't into smuggling and they weren't into spying. Or maybe they were
Right.
into spying, I'm not sure. Right.
Right. Right.
So
That's
now we're in
interesting, though, how
Pleasanton.
how you meet, how you meet, somebody that you've met before, right? And you end up having a long life together. That's a weird, happenstance, huh?
A lot of weird coincidences in life as, probably everybody experiences once or twice or many times. I know I do all the
Yeah.
time, we call it synchronicity. Anyway, so now we're in Pleasanton. Alright, Svetlana was arrested first of all, I was arrested in March 1983. And she was arrested in October of 1984, about a year and a half after I was arrested. So as I'm working my way through the prison system, as I described in earlier episodes, to get to Pleasanton, she gets arrested, and after her case, she goes directly to Pleasanton. I took a couple steps before I got there. Now we're both at Pleasanton at the same time. And she was told not to talk to anybody by her attorneys because people will make up stories about you and lie about you, and, you're a spy, keep your mouth shut.
Sure.
And so Joe, my roommate, Joe Chagra, as I described earlier, said that the spy's looking for me. He pointed her out. I went up to her and we met. And as we get so now we're good friends. All right. And she kept saying, I not spy. I not Mahari. So Joe and I called her the not spy. So,
And
hey,
she was
Bruce, the
saying
not
that just
spies.
because, right? She was saying that just because she didn't want to be known as a spy. She was already sentenced, or she was waiting trial, or that was just her persona. That she didn't want to be known as a spy.
No, she didn't care about being known, so she was an illegal spy. She was a Russian spy. They never admit it. You don't admit I was a spy.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah.
so you always say, so she goes, I not spy. And she didn't have the greatest English, so we always called her the not spy. All right,
Got it.
so it's Svetlana and the not spy. All right, so in prison,
But meanwhile, she was already convicted of espionage.
She was convicted of espionage, and now Richard Miller is going through the FBI agent that she had recruited was going
Yeah.
through his trials. And Svetlana, it's hard to describe a person I like her because there is no one like her. She was like a wild stallion that was in a cage. She used to say to me, "I'm gonna kill this person. I'm gonna kill that person. When I get out, I'm gonna kill this person." I go, "Geez, I'm a nonviolent hippie marijuana smuggler. She wants to kill a dozen people." She was just furious with them, and she was mad all the time and like this wild stallion. I and to give you an example of how wild she was going to testify against Richard Miller in Richard Miller's case. So she had this whole deal worked out with the government. Yes, I'm going to testify in the case. Richard Miller goes to trial. All right. Now she leaves Pleasanton to go out to that trial. And in the middle of the trial, she's on the witness stand and she's saying, they're asking her questions and cross examining her. She goes, and she says, he was never a spy. He never betrayed his country. So all of a sudden, that's like exactly opposite of what she was supposed to say. They literally stopped the trial and said
Yeah.
and had to go back into the judge's chambers to get, all of a sudden the prosecution's case is being blown. And
Yeah.
she didn't care. She was just wild. Another example, at the original trial,
Well, what happens? What happens next? I mean, they stop the trial, and we've all seen it on TV. The guy, getting scared by the mafia enforcer, right? And then he recants his story on the stand. Um, so, so,
she
so what
wasn't scared of
happens? I
anybody.
mean,
She was just being
yeah,
stubborn, obstinate, and downright aggressive
yeah,
against the
yeah.
prosecution. And that was it. She went back to trial. They got that straightened out. She's not going to admit it. She's going back on what she had told her. She recanted her testimony, and she goes, and she told me, she goes, she looked at his son and in the audience, and that's what made her open up and say, "I can't do this. I can't say that this guy was a spy." So she
Wow,
recanted it and
wow,
reversed her position.
wow.
I To show you how wild she was, going back to the original trial, when Richard Miller was up on the witness stand, testify against her, he's up there saying she was a spy. She literally picked up a pitcher of water and threw it at him and actually hit him in the head with this pitcher of water.
In
And they
court?
like in court, and it was like a pandemonium. She goes, everyone jumped up, and she was, they
Yeah,
surrounded her, and she said she jumped down, and she on her hands and knees, she scrambled over to the judge, you know, and they're all fighting each other. Everyone's fighting and looking, and they said, "Look, you can't." Her lawyer said, "You can't do that. They're going to get you for assault." I don't care. You know,
yeah.
goes, "Why did
And
you do
she's a
that?"
little
Because he
tiny thing,
lies.
right?
What?
And she's a little tiny thing, right?
Oh, yeah, she's like 5'1", but
Yeah.
feisty, says, "Well, he was lying. He deserved it." So she was that kind of a personality. On the other hand, she had a heart that was bigger than you can imagine, that was bigger than the sun. And I'll jump to ahead of prison to a story just to show the kind of person she was, with her heart. After prison, we were together and
Well, let
we're
me just
married
say
now.
she didn't display the really good heart in prison. She had to wait till after she got out of prison.
She may have. No, not the kind
Right.
that she did
Not
after
really?
prison.
Yeah.
No.
She had to keep
So
that tough
we're
guy,
at,
not spy personality.
right.
Right.
In prison, she was still wild. Now she's mellowed out a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
where I'm talking now after prison is like, what, 5, 6. Well, this is an interesting story about why I got out in 1982. She got out in 1995. I waited
No,
3 years for
92.
her.
92 you got out, not
Yeah.
82.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got out in 1992. Lana got out in 1995, 3 years later. So I waited for her, and that's totally unusual. Everyone was saying, "Bruce, forget about her, that's past. That was a prison romance." I made a commitment. I'm sticking to my commitment. And so I waited 3 years, got out, um, took care of her physically. She was, a mess when she got out. Physically, her tooth was crooked from you and another time, she got in a fist fight with a marshal, a female federal marshal, and she punched her, and the, um, the marshal punched her back, and it knocked her tooth, and little by little, her tooth got crooked and crooked, so by the time she got out of prison, it was a giant gap there. Took her to the dentist, got her all fixed up, um, she had boils all over her body from being in, county jail, rotten, horrible condition. Anyways, a little bit overweight. She got back in shape physically. Alright, now everything's back to normal. She's physically healthy, and we're in Colorado camping one time, and I was with this preacher, and we had all this stuff, and so we're gonna have this preacher and his wife and me and Svetlana. So we start taking out smoked turkey legs, chocolates. She had all these Russian chocolates, and literally made cheeses, bread, all this banquet on a picnic table that we're gonna have, um, lunch with.
Yeah.
And it happened to be in a camp park where there was, the rainbow gathering was happening at that same park. And,
And what is
the
the
rainbow
rainbow
gathering is
gathering?
yeah, the rainbow gathering is a bunch of hippies, that follow the Grateful Dead. A lot of times the Grateful Dead play at rainbow gatherings. It's sort of like a Burning Man, pre-Burning Man, and they're still
Yeah.
going on. They happen in national parks. It's like a hippie festival. So there's
Yeah.
all these hippies there. And we're in the I was in an excursion truck, and we're getting some more stuff out of the coolers and everything, and she sees a couple hippies, 2 couples walk up to the table, say something to the preacher. This is a preacher, supposed to be a man of God, right? And then they turn
Well,
around and walk away.
right.
So she walks up real quick, says, "What did they want?" They go, "They wanted some food." Giant banquet. I mean, huge. She goes, "Well, what do you mean they wanted some food?" She goes, "Yeah, well, what did you do?" She goes, "I told them we didn't have any food." Alright? She goes, "Whoa, hold on. This is 90% of that food on that table was ours." Alright? So she runs after them. She goes, "Wait a minute, come back here." And so they come back here. She gave them half the table. Turkey legs, chocolates, bread, cheeses, caviar, all kinds of stuff. She just loaded them all up because she couldn't bear somebody being hungry. It was a real thing with her and
Mhm.
Nikolai. I guess in the war, and then when they grew up, hungry and, a lot of times. So that she was always, always feeding people. If you were hungry, you got fed. If you were homeless, you got food. She always was doing that. So that's what I mean by her big heart.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
So she told me a lot of stories, in prison.
Well,
How
first
many
first, what attracted you? What attracted you to her? Was it her beauty? Was it her mystique? Was it the combination of everything? Or, I mean, what was the one thing that said, "I gotta have this woman"?
her body. She was beautiful. She was her face, high cheekbones, long blonde hair, lean and mean body, very healthy, and then her personality, I like assertive women. Well, she was a
Yeah.
little bit beyond assertive, she was downright aggressive.
To say the least, right.
I mean, you met her.
Right.
What is
Yeah.
your opinion of her?
Definitely aggressive. When I met her, she was usually drunk though. So whenever I was over, she was swigging a bottle of vodka. Um, so she was always angry at me for sure. I mean, I would come over and she would just literally scream at me for no reason, and you would say, "Ah, don't worry about that, Todd. She doesn't mean it." And and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't worry about it. I didn't care at that point." You know what I mean? But yeah, she was ornery and angry and mean, and a couple of vodkas in her, she got meaner, right? And it's just
Well,
what it was, you know?
she was an angry drunk, so
Yeah,
she'd
yeah.
start drinking early in the morning, and by about 2 or
Like
3 now
everybody, right, you know?
now in prison, she didn't drink, so I saw a whole different side of her. I
Sure,
didn't see that
right.
alcoholic side that I didn't know how to deal with that, but at a certain point,
You weren't making any kind of prison hooch? in
No,
in prison,
and
like some moonshine?
we did like, for those that don't know about hooch, you just take a bunch of fruit and you put it in a jar, you tighten the jar up, and you put it up in the ceiling or hide it somewhere, and I don't know, it was 1 week, 2 weeks, it ferments and turns into
It
alcohol,
ferments,
so
right?
that was the classic drink. She never drank hooch in prison, I never drank it, be in or out of prison, and, it just wasn't my thing.
It seems healthy, it's just vegetables,
Yeah.
fruit. Eh,
Yeah, but, I didn't like alcohol. Anyway, so she told me all these stories, in prison and about her life as a Russian spy, and so that's what I'm gonna relay a couple of those stories. So, her
yeah, I
job,
can't wait.
as I described earlier in a previous episode, was one of her job was to hunt down traitors that from Russia, people that were committed treason and defected to America. And the reason she recruited FBI agents because the FBI had the information on where these people were being housed. Alright. So, anyways, one guy I believe he had stolen a MiG from Russia, and I think he flew it to Spain, then they came to America, and now she had to track him down. She tracked him down, and she met him and talked to him and, realized that he really didn't betray his country at all. He didn't give him any secrets, he just wanted to be free. So she had $50,000 with them that they were gonna give him. Says, "Here's $50,000, go out and spend it and then go back to Russia." And she found out that they were gonna kill him. What they would do typically with guys like that, they would be walking down a long hallway to be interviewed, and, in the hallway, on the way to the interview, they'd shoot him in the back of the head. That was the classic, kill, death sentence for the traitors.
Yeah.
And so she didn't believe that they told her that they weren't gonna kill him. He goes, "Okay, make sure because he did not betray his country. I interviewed him, I interrogated him." And by the way, when you talk to her, she was interrogating you. I mean, she wasn't asking you questions, she was interrogating you, even whether you realized it or not. Sh so I would leave her with somebody as an example, and I'd go and do some other business, and I come back, she goes, "She's supporting him, they're broke, they have 3 kids." I mean, the whole life story about everything about these people. I go, "How do you know that?" She goes, "I just ask them." Anyways, she would interrogate and get a lot of information out of people just as a matter of fact.
Right,
It
but she
was
was trained to do that, right? So, I mean,
exactly.
that was just part of her being.
And she couldn't help it because that was part of her
Yeah,
being, and that's what she did all the time.
yeah, yeah,
Alright, so, they found out they were gonna kill this guy, and so she told him, "Take this $50,000, they're gonna kill you and get the hell out of here." And she saved his life, and he split, and left, and, so she goes, "Oh my god." It goes, "If my dad wasn't" remember, her dad was Yuri Andropov, and
yeah,
she would regularly fly back to the Soviet Union. And every time they did, they would give her a lie detector test, make sure she wasn't kissing anyone or having sex with anybody, because then she could fall in love with someone and betray her country. And he goes, that time, he goes, "Man, my dad, all these generals are lined up at the table, and very, very few of them knew that Yuri was her father, maybe 2 or
right.
3. I She goes, "He's sitting there looking like this." Goes and they're asking me questions, and she goes, "What are you gonna do to me?" She said, staring down all yelling at all the generals. Goes, "What are you gonna do to me? Kill my son? He's already in America. You can't get to him." Goes She goes, "Here, you want your badge back?" And she throws her badge on the table, some kind of badge, KGB GRU badge. Anyway, so then what happened when at the airport, finally at the airport, her father came back, when she was about to get on the plane and gave her her badge back. And, so she could get away with a lot of stuff because of she had sort of immunities because your dad's the big boss. Um,
Sure.
okay, another little story. So she did that, but then so she let the traitor get away.
That's kind of like that Scarface moment, right? Ain't nothing you can do to me that Castro is not already done, right? So
Right,
she's
yeah, it's the same.
right. What are you gonna do to me, right? Right? You're in drop off. What's he gonna do to me, right? What? It's funny.
Right. So in one episode, I started talking about her that she would one of her fronts was she would bring these. these film cases, and she would take Russian films and show it to the Russian community, and then she'd take the film cases back to the embassy in San Francisco, but they were full of spy secrets, not films. And so
Right.
she was in that industry. So she brought the movie The Deer Hunter back to Russia one time because in Deer Hunter, you had some Russian immigrants that fought in the Vietnam War on the American side, and at the end, you have Russian immigrants singing "God Bless America." Well, that was banned in the Soviet Union. You're not
Oh,
allowed to
wow.
show it. So she took the film back and went all over to all these little towns all over Russia and showed it because that's what she did. In LA and in Russia. She goes, "Wow, I barely got away with my life on that one. If my dad wasn't who he was, I would have been killed because that was a treasonous act." But she was this obstinate, stubborn woman that would do stuff like that, you know?
Just for fun or just for trouble?
She said people need to know the truth. That was her excuse. People need to know the truth, and this is the truth. This really happens. And so and just because she wanted a scandal all the time, I mean, I remember
Right,
walking
she
around with
thrives
her.
on chaos, huh?
Yeah. I remember walking around with her, and she'd look up, and she'd look just, "I need a scandal." Right? And she's looking for a scandal, to create a scandal somehow. Um, I told you one story, I wanna before I forget this, that she could pick locks, and the guards, when they lose their key or forget their key, they ask her to pick a lock. So I was talking to my brother Craig, the dock master from episode 5 and episode 40 he was on, and, he had a
I'm so glad
daughter
you
when
told
she
me
was
who my cousin Craig was. Thank you.
right,
Right.
and and I don't know, his daughter's what, your niece, your second cousin or something?
His daughter would be my cousin also, my second cousin.
Okay. So Nicole, when she was 13, 14, we me and Lana we were staying at Craig's house in Florida in our RV. We parked in his big yard. He had 5 acres there. And then his daughter, Tony, now, I mean, Tony was his ex-wife. His daughter, Nicole, would come and stay there. And Lana said, "Come on, Nicole, let me show you something." So she taught her how to pick locks and showed her how to do that toothbrush thing to jam the door so you couldn't open the door. So Craig was
So
telling me,
what's the toothbrush thing?
alright, so the toothbrush thing is where you take a toothbrush and you stick it between the door and the door jamb. So you've now put a lot of pressure on it. So you might be able to turn the handle, but if you put a key in there and try and unlock the lock, the key would actually break because you can't turn and pull the little thing in because there's too much pressure there. And then you take a second toothbrush and you lay it on top of the door knob, alright, and the other one is sticking like that. So that's the toothbrush thing. But she also taught her how to pick locks. Now, Nicole was a troubled teenager, like most teenage girls, right? They turn 13, they become monsters. And, so she was 13, 14, and so Tony, Craig's ex-wife, when she was complaining, says, "And you keep Lana away from Nicole because she taught her how to pick a lock." And what Tony had done because she was a troubled girl, she turned the lock from her door around and put it on the outside so she could lock her in to her bedroom. She couldn't escape. And little Nicole picked the lock because Lana taught her
Oh, that's
how to
funny.
pick locks and got out, you know?
That's
So
funny.
anyways, that was, a
She
very
coulda got out of prison and started an entire locksmith business.
right. I so she told me all these stories, and she did the things that validated some of the stories. Now, one story she told me, which who knows if it's true or not, probably is. She said after her original husband died in a Mission Impossible, some, spy mission, he was wounded and he died in the hospital. She was all freaked out, and so her dad, Yuri, sent her off to the Himalayas to, a monastery, and her teacher was a man named Sonny Lou. She always talked to me about Sonny Lou, Sonny Lou. Lana had this incredible spiritual side to her and had a lot of psychic powers, or apparently some kind of psychic powers, which I'll describe a few of them in a second.
Please, I mean, you can't just roll through, "Oh, she has psychic powers," and, meanwhile, she was eating a sandwich for lunch. I mean, what
So
do you mean she has
so
psychic powers? What could she see or do?
oh, I'll tell you in a second. Alright, but Sunny
Okay.
Lou was up in the monastery up in the Himalayas in, Tibet is where she went. So I guess I don't know if he was spiritual, but he obviously was, and he taught her all those things, and I remember one time she said that she got really mad at him because they did when he says, "Do you know who I am?" And they go, "We don't care who you are." She goes, "I'm leaving." And so she literally left the monastery. That's how wild she was. "I'm getting out of here." And she went walking through the forest, and luckily somebody followed her because she got herself lost. Then she sat down by a tree and started crying because she didn't know where she was in the middle of nowhere, and they came up and says, "Come on, let's go back." And so she went back and continued her spiritual lessons to get over the, depression of her dead husband. Alright, so
So
some of
that
the
was just a
things.
temper tantrum, a
Yeah.
temporary temper tantrum? Yeah.
Oh, always throwing temper
Looking
tantrums.
looking for a scandal, right?
Yeah, like, as example, when lived with us out in Arizona, she'd Craig or Fred and whoever it was, Judy, she'd kick him out of the house, she'd get drunk, get mad, kick him out of the house, they go away, they go, I bought the lot next door and the house next door, so I go, "Judy, when she kicks you out, just go next door to
Go
the
next
trailer."
door.
I 'cause
Right.
1 to 2 weeks later, she called up and she goes, "Judy, where are you?" She goes, "Well, you kicked me out." "Well, come back, I miss you." So she moved back. 2 months later, she'd kick her out again. Yeah, and that happened with Craig, that happened with Judy, that happened with Fred, that happened with Sandy, always kicking him out and then telling him that they can come back. Alright, so she used to go through what she called the golden circle. I go, "What's a golden circle?" She would describe it, imagine a circle made up of this vibrating golden light. And she would go through the golden circle, and she would go into a place, and she would talk to beings in that other world, whether that was another dimension or whether it was a higher reality, and so going through the golden circle was a not a normal, but a once in a while event for her. She'd say, "Oh, I went through the golden circle last night."
So this golden circle she would travel in her mind through and communicate with aliens, with dead people,
No, regular people in long white robes is as I
Right, and
picked her
who
brain.
were those people talking to her?
Just people that lived on the other side of the golden circle, you
Got
know?
it.
Yeah,
Got it.
we would call it a portal today. We would say that's a portal. She would go through a
Right,
portal to another realm. I
right.
Now, another time, I told you one of our hotel we called it hotels where you make love, was behind the, movie theater into another
Yep,
room. Another
yep.
place was in the hobby shop up on top of the office. There was a little office in the hobby shop, and everybody would come in from outside rec to go into your units, so they would release you one at a time, 1 unit at a time to go to lunch. Well, when she came in, she'd peel off and go into the hobby shop where I was already there because I worked there, and Barrett would still let us go in there and make sure that no other guards are coming, and we go to the top, and we'd be up there. It was a great I mean, you would sweat like crazy. There's nothing like making love when you're that healthy and that young, and you're just totally covered in sweat. And one time, I just thought of, I guess it was either Becky or Diane, one of my ex-wives, and she just stops moving, looks right at me, and says, "Get off of me." I go, "How did she know what I was thinking?" I so
Oh, that's a
she
little freaky at this point.
that was
That's a
I
little
mean, Todd,
freaky.
it was really
Yeah,
freaky.
yeah,
I mean, I'm
yeah.
thinking, "How the heck did she know that?" Another time,
I'm
just another
so glad my wife is not clairvoyant like that, really.
Uh-oh. Be careful there, Todd. I hope she doesn't watch this episode because I know you'd never do that, right? After what, 30
Never.
years
I
of
would never
marriage?
do that. That's just uncalled for and rude and disrespectful. Yeah, I would never do that.
I'm sure nobody out there does that. The
No.
other thing is, one time I actually called her Becky. I actually said, in the throngs of
Oh,
passion,
that's
I said, "Oh,
trouble. That's
Becky."
trouble.
That was big trouble. So I said, That's normal. Everyone does that." And so So Jerry Decker, who was one of the professors that spoke all these different languages, he translated professionally in 6 to 7 languages. So he spoke and he could speak fluent Russian. I said, "Jerry, can you explain that doesn't mean anything?" So he explained he was like her counselor in Russian
Right.
that, that sex has a lot of emotions tied up in it, and just because I called her Becky or Diane, whichever it was, I think it was Becky, doesn't mean that I wish it was Becky, it just means that that's what's, wired into your nervous system is being with that, and so it means nothing. So she got over that. Um,
Wait,
so
I just wanna write that down. Say that again? It's just a very normal no, I'm just kidding.
it's wired into your nervous system. So
I'm just kidding.
so if any for all you guys out there
That's
who
right,
I'm
that's
sure
right.
that has never happened to anyone, right?
Honey, it's wired in. There's nothing I can do about it, right?
I mean, how many people put in the comments section how many people that's happened to? That would be fun to see. Okay,
Right.
speaking of sex, okay, so at the time
Meanwhile, back at the sex story, right?
right, okay, so remember, she never slept with Richard Miller, that was just their defense, alright? She knew nothing about sex, she was all upset that she knew nothing. It's okay, I taught her
Yeah,
everything.
but wasn't she married before?
Well, she had a baby before, but that was years and years earlier, you know? She wasn't like us, we grew up in the '60s, we were
So
wild, we
she
did
forgot about
everything.
sex after the baby?
Yeah, she'd learned a little bit, but but she lived with Nikolai, the bodyguard, for years, 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 and it wasn't like she wasn't taught how to seduce a man. That was just, we learned it because of the '60s. We were so promiscuous.
Did she ever tell you any kind of spy stories like, "I was on this mission and
No, that's
this
one thing she
happened"?
never did. She never
Hmm,
ever told me names of people she recruited, and never
interesting.
told me any specific, um, other than the MiG guy, which she gave the 50,000 to. She was very, very closed-mouthed about all that stuff. So I really don't know anything, um, specific. I don't know people. The only person I
Wow,
really
after
know was
40
a guy.
years together or whatever it was, right? I mean, you guys, together for a really long time, weren't you?
Yeah, she would never make a movie. They wanted to make movies of her over and over again. She never wanted to talk to anybody to make movies, which is a shame because would have been a great movie, and never told me so.
Well, it's
You know
supposed to be the sequel to your movie, The King of Pot.
well, yeah, but what that's about in prison. The adventures in prison stuff, not about any spy stuff. She just was very closed-mouthed, and she's really good at keeping her mouth shut about that, and, the only thing I knew was a guy named Khrushchev was back when she would go back to the Kremlin, and by the way, in her trial, they said, "You say you're not a Russian spy, but there was 3 times in American history that we were on full-on nuclear alert." One was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I forget the other 2, and all 3 times, her and her son flew back to Russia. So how is it that no one knew we were on nuclear alert, top secret, but you end up flying back to Russia exactly the same time we're on nuclear alert? So, one of the
She
times she
already
flew
bought her tickets. It was just a coincidence.
yeah, just coincidence, she wasn't a Russian spy. Remember, she never admitted it.
All right, well, this has been a lot of fun, hearing more stories about Alana. Say her last name again, sorry.
Okay, Ogorodnikova, and here's how you can remember, Todd.
Ogorodnikova. Tell me.
Ogo like Ogo row a boat, knee, your knee, cough, Ogorodnikova.
Yeah, that's good. It's the knee thing that's gonna help me remember it. It's because of my knee, right? So, any last words about Lana before we sign off, my friend?
Well, those people that remember her, you know, a lot of people loved her a lot because of she had such a beautiful heart, and even though she would kick people out of the house, she'd invite 'em back. Um, she was a character. She was larger than life, and it's somebody that people will remember their entire lives. One of those
Yeah.
personalities you just don't forget.
Yeah, she was definitely, a large personality for a little tiny person. You knew she was in the room for sure. For sure. All right, Bruce. Well, it's been lots of fun as always, and I look forward to coming back next week and telling more smuggling stories right here on Becoming the King of Pot. He is Bruce Perlowin, and also known as the King of Pot. I'm Todd Denkin. I'm his cousin. And this is Becoming the King of Pot. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.